Let's now look at the various steps in the decision making process. So the first step is defining or diagnosing the problem. Sound diagnosis is a crucial step in the decision making process. How we define a problem usually determines how we analyze it. It sends us in a particular direction, and the direction we take absolutely determines whether we find a solution and the quality of the solution. Consider the example of a guy who thought his water bed was leaking. He defined the problem as, how can I fix the leak? His analysis was guided by that definition, by that statement of the problem. As it turned out, he had defined the problem incorrectly. He should have asked, what is the source of the water on my blanket? He should have made a distinction between the problem and its symptoms. Had he done so, his analysis would probably have considered alternative sources and revealed the source to be not the waterbed but a leaky drain in an upstairs bathroom. The second step is to gather all the facts. Once the problem has been defined, the next logical step is to collect data. Data collection implies collecting pertinent facts, decisions taken in the past, and their outcome, previous solutions to similar problems, etc. Some points to be kept in mind during fact gathering are: the information should be collected from the most reliable source. All relevant facts, regardless of how disorganized or unrelated they seem at the time of data gathering, should be recorded. The information should be subjected to verification. The conflicting data must be resolved. The temptation to accept first response to inquiries should be avoided. The facts, wherever possible, should be supported by tangible evidence in the form of copies of appropriate documents. After you have done the second step, step number 3 is to list all the possible solutions or alternatives. This step involves looking for the possible solutions and listing them down. Most common sources of collecting and listing of alternatives include research, creativity, brainstorming, existing solutions, etc. After you are done with step number 3, step number 4 is to evaluate alternatives. Once all the alternative solutions have been listed, they are next evaluated. This is usually done by evaluating each alternative against a set of objectives or selected criteria which the solution must meet. The steps involved within evaluating alternatives are: So first, each alternative is analyzed to see whether or not it meets the absolutely necessary objectives. So basically, you have to list the objectives or the specified criteria that you want to use for making the decisions. Some criteria will fall under the absolutely necessary category, some may fall under the nice to have category, and others may fall under adverse consequences category. So first you have to evaluate which of the alternatives meet the absolutely necessary objectives. An alternative which does not meet the absolutely necessary objectives is immediately removed from further study. Second, the alternatives which meet the absolutely necessary objectives are next checked for nice to have objectives. Those which are good in terms of nice to have objectives are then examined for adverse consequences. Since each alternative usually entails some risk, the decision maker must assess the risk, the probability of risk, and or the seriousness of the risk. Every attempt should be made to eliminate or minimize the risk. The advantages of the alternatives are then quantified in terms of a common denominator, which is usually in monetary terms. After you are done with evaluating the alternatives, step number 5 is to select the best alternative. The alternatives are ranked according to their worth. Final decision is made of the alternative which provides the maximum advantage and has an acceptable risk. That is the alternative that meets the solution criteria which was selected initially. After you're done with step number 5, step number 6 is to implement the selected decision. Once this final solution has been made, the next step is to implement the decision. Though these steps mentioned above are sequential, usually there is a lot of back and forth between the steps. For example, while trying to evaluate alternatives, the decision maker may have to go back to data collection step if he finds that he does not have all the information available.